Welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals. Each week, host Bryan O'Rourke brings you an expert interview with a global influencer at the crossroads of fitness and technology. You gain the insights, tools, and inspiration you need to stay connected to the pulse for what matters most for your business in the age of exponential technologies.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to episode 156 of the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. I am your host, Bryan O'Rourke, and today we have the pleasure of welcoming Erika Levy on the program. She's going to talk about her Barre Fusions group fitness program that she's launched, along with her background in technology, in electronic media production, and in fitness in general. I think you'll enjoy the interview. It's a great story about a professional in our industry space doing a lot of very interesting and diverse things. So I look forward to sharing that with you momentarily. But in the interim, I know people are prepping to be in Los Angeles, where I'm now based out of in Orange County, for URSA this year, coming up in just a few weeks. I'll be at the show. Please, brianko'rourke@gmail.com if you want to reach out and say hello, have a coffee, or just shake hands. I'd love to see you. And of course, the European Health and Fitness Forum, aligned with FIBO, coming up in Cologne, Germany in April. That will be another great event. So again, reach out to me if you'll be there so that we can spend some time visiting. There is a lot of very interesting things coming up. And so I look forward to connecting with all of you. The Fitness Industry Technology Council at URSA will have a light social gathering as well, so be on the lookout for that. So without further ado, let's get into episode 156 and our visit with Erika Levy. Well, listeners, as I said in the intro, we have the great pleasure of welcoming Erika Levy to the podcast. Erika, thanks for making some time. How are you today?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, I'm so happy to visit with you. I was looking at your background, and there's a lot we have to talk about, especially when it comes to group fitness and technology and other things. How did you get involved in the industry space, Erika?
Well, it started really in Los Angeles. I studied electronic media production because that's what it was called at the time. Digital production wasn't a term, right? Yeah. And so I was always an early adopter. And when I went to LA and looked for a job, I wanted to be in commercial production, and I had some experience working in commercial production. But I ended up finding a software company called WireDrive that was teaching folks how to work online, both for work in progress in production for review and approval, and for sales and marketing purposes. When I got started in the industry, we were messengering VHS tapes and 3/4 tapes, and then we advanced to messengering DVDs. But when I first started selling online software, people were really skeptical if it was the good enough quality to actually make a decision to hire somebody or to work, to review and approve something online. So, I was a trailblazer and paving the road for, the future of online production.
Well, that's interesting that you had that background, because it's going to serve you well as we go down this conversation. Now I understand as I'm connecting the dots. So you have had a very broad, kind of background in the space and a lot of work in the group fitness arena. Can you tell me a little bit about trends there, and maybe talk a little bit about your Barre Fusions concept that you've launched?
Sure. So I've always been a group fitness junkie. So I even took step class as an elective in college, and I took all types of different dance fitness classes. I was really into Taekwondo for a while. I never saw myself as an instructor, but after working for 10 years in LA and building up my career, my husband and I wanted to move to Denver, actually, because there was opportunity there and the housing market was good. And I unfortunately was during the recession, and I had a hard time at first finding a job. But there was a yoga studio on every corner.
Yeah.
So I got really into yoga and I took a teacher training just to deepen my practice. As most people know, people who do that end up teaching, and that's
Yeah.
what happened. I got hired as a marketing director for an online advertising agency, but I started teaching coworkers during the lunch break, and then I started teaching after work at a gym. And suddenly I found myself teaching and really passionate about teaching yoga. And then, cut to many years later, I had two kids. I moved back to the Pacific Northwest. I'm originally from Portland, but I moved to Camas, Washington, and I started teaching at Cascade Athletic Clubs, both in Gresham
Yeah.
and Portland, Gresham and Vancouver. And they offered a bar above training. And I thought, bar, okay, that's interesting. It's a fusion, and I'm a yogi. Maybe that could be cool. And I just fell in love with it. And just as I was about to start teaching, COVID hit. And so then I started really learning online and became a student of Barre. And all of these amazing legends of Barre were accessible and available from my living room. All these amazing instructors that normally I would have to fly somewhere and take a class in person just to have the opportunity to learn from them was now accessible. And so it really inspired me to learn as much as I could about that format. And then as I was studying other instructors, I started seeing all these different blends and fusions of bar popping up. So, the belly dance bar and kettle bar and zoom bar and pulse and flow, which was more of a yoga type of a fusion. And I really thought it would be interesting to work with active agers. And I started teaching active aging bar, and I started teaching chair yoga, and I started working with children. I have my own children, and I taught yoga with them. And so I got really interested in how to adapt exercise for all ages, all levels, how to make it inclusive and make everyone feel welcome. So it was my passion that kind of led to my purpose.
That's a great answer. So, with respect to that, before we started the podcast, you were walking me through some thinking on this and the different kind of arenas in the group fitness space. You have, licensed programs. Of course, I've distributed Les Mills for over a decade. You have other freestyle. You have all these different combinations or models of distributing content through instructors. Tell me about your thoughts of that and how, your new concept of Barre Fusion fits into that dynamic.
Yeah, well, as a new instructor, it is so helpful to have that content. And I can understand from a company's perspective, they want continuity and
Yeah.
consistency when members come into their classes. But I do think that it leaves a bit to be desired for the actual instructor who's teaching, because it doesn't give them the opportunity to be creative and bring their own unique background and creativity into a class. And oftentimes they don't teach instructors, how to really create their own classes. And if they do, it's pretty abstract, because I took a lot of courses, and I still really struggled with class design. It was very time consuming. And I didn't really have a blueprint that was clear enough that made creating my own classes easy. And I think that's where I started, was how can I streamline class design? How can I take offline processes of handwritten notes and planning into a digital environment to become more efficient and effective?
And is that what you're doing with your new concept here, Barre Fusion, and what you've been up to as part of that programming?
Exactly. It really directly translates the skills that I've learned over my career in
Yeah.
SaaS, right? Because I consulted with producers, heads of production, sales reps, directors how to digitize and streamline their workflows. So I just took the same concept of how can I digitize and streamline my workflow as an instructor. And what I found was I really needed to create a database. Really, that's step number one. If you want to monetize your content, if you want to have a virtual studio, then you need to upload data into a platform. And if you don't know what data you're working with, then it makes it really frustrating and overwhelming. So really starting with a spreadsheet and starting with finding consistent names for exercises so that you can sort and filter properly and have complex filtering. So I wanted to be able to quickly recall something in my repertoire that was a lunge series with a glider, right? Instead of shuffling through hundreds of loose papers and file folders or notebooks, or scrubbing through old releases on my computer, or looking through Instagram, which is a huge time suck. I was like, you know what? If I just had a database that I could quickly go to and type in what I wanted and find it, how great would that be to have the control and power over my own repertoire like that? And so I started working with building a database. And then once I did and became really effective and efficient about planning, I created this method to teach other people how to do that. And once they were able to do that, then it's very easy to monetize content because everything you have to type into the platform is already there.
Yeah, it's a lot easier that way. So it gives the ability to execute a greater variety of programming output without it being so hard to actually pull that off, right?
Exactly. And it's not like you have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
You could take you could have 50 different exercises and mix them up in hundreds of different ways,
Wait,
right?
right. That's great. That's a really outstanding. So you're using technology for this application to do the programming. Tell me about what you've seen otherwise in group fitness when it comes to tech, or have you been in, have you seen? I know there's been the rise of heart rate training at times and group cycling. There's been the rise of power meters. I know people use their Apple Watches or whatever and wearable devices. What has been your observation over the years on that? Are you seeing people bringing that into your group fitness space, or not really as much?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a really early adopter. So I was into Nike Plus. Remember when you had to
Yeah,
put the thing in your shoe and then it
yeah.
connected to your phone or whatever it was? And I actually created, when I was working in Los Angeles for Wire Drive, a presentation which you can still find on my YouTube called The Digital Diet You Are What You Tweet, kind of. This concept of a digital diet, of the beginning of tracking your fitness and your health in a way that was tangible. And, I got to the point where it was like, if I wasn't wearing a Fitbit when I was working out, then it didn't count, right?
Count, right, right.
I'm one of those people.
I'm
So,
one too.
yeah. So I'm a huge proponent of that, but I am also, in addition to that, a huge proponent of moving with joy and doing what feels good in your body and not taking it so seriously. You want to keep people safe, but you also want them to adhere to exercise and come back to your classes, right? So, I always say my classes are low impact, high joy, you know? So yeah, I definitely want people to be mindful of their heart rate when they're working out, and I think technology is a huge benefit to tracking your health and wellness, while at the same time it's important not to get hung up on it to the point where it becomes about the metrics and not about the enjoyment.
Yeah. Well, that's a very good, people use there is that going on, right? That kind of chasm we deal with. I was listening to a podcast recently and someone talked about, everyone talking about AI, but his term for it was not artificial intelligence, it was artificial intimacy. And the thing they talked about was how technology makes us feel like we're connected, and it's really kind of a bit of a illusion. So I thought it was interesting that you point this out, because yes, the benefit of group fitness is you're with people, you're enjoying yourself. And so you're right, that's very well put. You don't want to let the metrics get in the way of having a good time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great observation. So you're working and representing club automation now. Tell me what you've seen in the field a little bit. I mean, your background in studios, full service health clubs, some like Gold's Gym, internationally branded, others more independent operators. So you have a pretty broad background in different types of operations. And now working with club automation, you're out in the field talking to operators of all types. Are there some common themes that you hear from people when it comes to their member management or technology in general that you see right now out there in the wild, as they'd say?
Yeah, definitely. Well, Club Automation offers end-to-end solutions, and I think a lot of operators are looking at things individually. Like, I need to have a member management system, but I also need to have a website, and then I also need to have a lead management system for tracking sales and conversions. I also need online advertising. And so they're looking at all these kind of disparate systems and trying to figure out how to Frankenstein them
Yeah,
together,
yeah,
right? And I feel like, working with Club Automation, they provide all of those different solutions that are integrated in one place. So you have one source of truth, let's say. And I think really looking at a bigger picture, helping operators see the bigger picture of it starts with the website, right? And I think a lot of people are struggling with in terms of offline and online,
yes,
really starting with online join. Like that seems to be, it reminds me very much of when I started selling um, online solutions for the commercial production industry. And everyone was like,
right,
well, I don't know if this is really going to be for me, you know, and it's because there's a way of giving someone a tour in person and building that rapport, building that connection. It's a very localized thing. Having all the five senses involved, they can see the space. It's not just on a computer in a 360-degree view, right? And they're actually immersed in the space, and they can come take a class, and there's a greater opportunity of converting that person in person. But you're leaving money on the table if you're not offering an online solution. I don't think it's a one or the other type of a thing. We need to be living in a hybrid environment now. And I
that's
think
right.
COVID showed us that, right? Um,
Yes.
so I
So
think it's important to start thinking about how to start with the website. That's your storefront. How to it's about leading the horse to water and trying to make it drink, right? So getting that person to take a tour online. Maybe they want to purchase it online, maybe they still want to take a tour in person, and to have the ability to do both, starting with that. And then the member experience when they come in, having a barcode on their phone that they can just click through and come on in, and then being able to have an app to book their classes or swim lane reservations or their courts or whatever that is, and to have a way to further engage members by offering marketing within the app or the website for other programming, so that you can get people who are interested in group fitness into a personal training session or vice versa.
what advice do you have for people in the industry space today that you would suggest they keep top of mind, and as far as their careers, as far as the future, as far as any entrepreneurial opportunities go?
Yeah, so as an instructor, I think it's really important to also build those offline and online relationships. And I know that you have to work very ethically and mindfully so that you're not in conflict with the people that are employing you. And with that said, though, I think there's a lot of opportunity to monetize your content and to create online experiences that are an extension of the in-person experience for example, if I'm an instructor, I am an instructor, right? And I teach at Gold's Gym Camas, love it there. And my regulars who love me might be traveling and not be able to come to my workout. And so instead of just telling them to go to some other website, maybe I could say, hey, well, I'll do a Zoom session with you, or I've recorded a 60-minute workout and it's available in my virtual studio. Would you be interested? Or maybe it's, taking a group of people from my barre class and doing a special challenge that's, more about connection and, supporting one another on our fitness journeys. And maybe there's a class involved. Maybe it's just, talking about nutrition or our personal health goals or whatever it is. And that's supplemental to working out in the studio. And I think, people talk about, virtual, is it staying, is it going? I think, it's here to stay. I definitely do, but I don't think that it will ever be one or the other, because I also, as a group fitness junkie, need to be around people. And I suffered from postpartum depression, and that was really part of my rehabilitation, was getting to a group fitness class and connecting with other people. And when that isn't an option, I might still want to take a class with that same instructor that I love and that I miss, right? So I think there's a huge opportunity for instructors to really increase their revenue without having to teach at 20 different facilities around town.
That is a big challenge, right? Is figuring out, in today's world, you look at a lot of education, and I know you've done work with ACE and you're very well certified and you know this, but really teaching people how to adopt that kind of approach to their career is really, I think, part of the future of it, right?
Absolutely, especially for fitness instructors who don't make a lot of money, who are struggling to figure out how are they going to keep up with these, big brands out there that have all of this content. And really they can, because, people who go to a fitness class, some people do it just for the class and they don't care, but most people do it because of the actual teacher that's teaching that class.
That's
so
right.
I think there's a huge opportunity too for making classes more inclusive and making them more diverse, and allowing instructors to bring diversity in music and their backgrounds, and diversity in movement, and to break down the barriers of what barre is. You don't even need a barre to do barre, actually. So to break down the barriers, to allow more people to stumble upon fitness and find something that brings them joy and that improves their quality of living and their health. I think that's really the goal here.
I think that's beautiful and very thoughtful and very wise, wise and great wisdom to share with the listeners. I know they'll enjoy it. Erika, thank you so much for spending time. I really enjoyed your insights. It's very nice to meet you, and I know our listeners will be very thankful to have had you on as a guest.
Thanks. I'm going to be at URSA, so anyone who's interested, please let me know. I'd love to meet up. And also, I would love to extend a special discount to all FITSE members who are interested in taking my Barre Fusions certification.
Well, that's awesome. And we look forward to seeing you there as well. And of course, in the show notes, everyone, we will have links to how to get in touch with Erika, how to check out her programming and everything about her. So look in the show notes and you'll see all those connections for her. Thank you, Erika, so much.
Thank you.
Hello, listeners. This is Bryan O'Rourke, and thanks so much for listening to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. The podcast is made possible by the Fitness Industry Technology Council, a consortium of global brands working together to enhance the adoption of technologies in the fitness space. Our company, Videri Ventures, which is invested in Vertimax, Montezuma, Gold's Gym Houston, Texas, and Fitness 24/7 Thailand, also underwrites the podcast, along with our service companies, Integris Advisors, Moon Mission Media, and others. Please feel free to share this podcast with your colleagues. And if I can be of any assistance to you, don't hesitate to reach out, bryanko'rourke@gmail.com, or find me on any of the major social networks. Have a great day, and thanks for listening.